People always talk about game minimum specs, but does anybody really know what they mean?
Game developers tell you that you need this hardware to run at this FPS, but really, is that actually the case? Are they over-exaggerating? Are they under-exaggerating? Welcome to today's video where Jackson and I are going to build two gaming PCs to try to meet or exceed the minimum specs to show you guys what that gaming experience is actually like. We'll talk more about it after a word from today's sponsor. Today's work world is way more mobile than it used to be. From working from home to flexible schedules that require you commuting to and from the office, taking the time to set up your laptop at your workstation can be exhausting. Well, today's sponsor, Anker, has the perfect solution for you. Meet the Anker Prime Thunderbolt 5 docking station. This docking station is perfect for the latest Gen M4 MacBooks or other devices featuring Thunderbolt 5 to provide a powerful single cable docking experience with up to 120 gigabits per second in transfer speed, which is 3 times faster than the previous Gen Thunderbolt 4 and USB 4. This dock comes equipped with a Thunderbolt 5 upstream connector to connect your laptop and 2 Thunderbolt 5 downstream ports with daisy chain support to connect multiple Thunderbolt displays, storage devices, and even eGPUs to create the perfect one plug and you're done workstation setup with a wide range of connectivity options. This dock not only has functionality to charge your laptop up to 140 watts of charging speed, it can also do so with a super clean and minimal cable setup. No need for a bulky external power brick. It also features intelligent cooling to effectively cool the dock under different workloads while also being extremely quiet. Go ahead and look up Anker Prime TB5 to learn more. If you purchase this device now, you can participate in a limited time mystery box giveaway event. You can also click the link in the bio to go to Anker's official website to learn more about the event details. Upgrade your laptop docking setup today with the Anker Prime Thunderbolt 5 docking station by checking the link down below. And big thanks again to them for sponsoring today's video. Now, let's get into the video, shall we?
So if you didn't know, anytime that you want to play a game on a PC, the game developers will actually give you a list of minimum, recommended, and then of course the best experience specs. And normally, we always like to go best experience and we don't really like to follow the minimum, but today, we're going to be looking at those minimums.
Especially as budget gamers, you want to see, can that PC you built 10, 11, 12, 15 years ago, can it launch the latest game before you buy it? That's kind of what these minimum spec requirements are for. In today's video, we're going to kind of make a little challenge out of it. There's going to be no price limit for the PCs we're building in today's video, but Jackson and I each picked 2 games based on 2 separate game categories. I picked the AAA titles, some really demanding games that should have some higher minimum specs, and Jackson picked some esports titles that are much lower specs, and the idea is, without any budget constraints, we're going to try to meet those minimum requirements, maybe go a little bit over to match both games at the same time, but afterwards we're going to decide whether or not we got the best price performance PC by finding the average cent per point when we test these PCs in our 3D Mark score. So not only do we have to meet the minimum specs, it has to be good price to performance.
So I gotta say, I loved my 2 games and their minimum specs. I picked Fortnite and Apex Legends, and for Fortnite, they say that the minimum specs are Intel HD 4000 or Vega 8. Those are integrated CPU graphics, and get this, processor i3 3rd gen. There is I don't care what anyone says, there's no way you're gonna play integrated 3rd gen i3 graphics on Fortnite. Now EA's minimum specs for Apex, they claim that you need an i3 6300 or an FX 4350, and then you do need a graphics card, they say, at least a GTX 950 or an HD 7790 with 2 gigs of VRAM on that card. And of course, 75 gigs of free space. So I gotta say, my specs are extremely low. I could literally go down to the floor with this PC and do something really cheap if I wanted to.
Yeah, you could do something either like a retro build with some old 3rd, 4th gen stuff, or you could do an office PC upgrade. You have a lot of potential there. But for me, with AAA titles, that's where the minimum specs get a bit higher. The GPU requirements are much higher. And we're gonna start with Ghost of Tsushima, which this is for very low settings at 720p 30 FPS. That's what they say is minimum playable. I think it's a little bit debatable in my opinion, but for the CPU, an i3 7100 or a Ryzen 3 1200, so we're looking at 7th gen Intel, early Ryzen. For the GPU, which I'll say, this is a pretty big gap, a GTX 964 gig or a 5500 XT from AMD. I don't think those are on the same playing field. A 5500 XT is actually a good amount better, so we'll see what we go with that. It's 75 gigs of hard drive space. Anywho, for the Blackman Wukong minimum specs, we need an i5-8400, so a minimum 6-core, 6-thread processor, or a Ryzen 5 1600, which is a 6-core, 12-thread. 16 gigs of RAM, so that means at least my system will have 16 gigs because one of the games requires it. A 1066 gig or an RX 588 gig, 130 gigs of available space, and that's pretty much okay for Wukong. So I think my build is gonna probably be something 1st gen Ryzen with like a 1060 NVIDIA level GPU, something like that. That seems like something to be in the balance, but I'd be interested to see what we spend on the build and see if we get good price to performance on our build when we do our 30 mark test and see how the minimum specs actually run. Let's get to shopping. I'm thinking just, if I'm doing a custom build off the top of my head, I'm thinking a Ryzen 5 1600 with a 5500 XT. Kind of thinking that vibe, and we'll see what the price performance ends up being. I guess let's go on eBay and look up a Ryzen 5 1600. 30-day warranty, it's been tested, $27 in free shipping. All right, bet. Let's look up like a B450 motherboard. The issue is here is trying to find a good deal on one that's gonna actually work. Soyo, but this is direct from Soyo, so this will be, but it's in the United States. Okay, so this Soyo board might be my best option. Probably the basic Teamgroup stuff. Price to performance here, $28. That'll work. Let's throw that in there. This just says 130 gigs of free storage. So it don't even say recommended SSD, but we're gonna go with a nice SSD, a 512 gigabyte SSD. Let's go KingSpec, save a little bit of money here. Get up that price performance, a Gen 3 drive. GPU, this is where things are gonna get a little interesting. Ghost of Tsushima is saying GTX 964 gig or a 5500 XT. That is like a wide gap. This one's pretty ugly, but it's a single fan. All right, let's go ahead and add that. 550 watt. Might as well. Let's go with the mag. What do we got that's not Okinos? Because I could just go Okinos and call it a day. Yeah, let's try that one. 5 fans pre-installed, $58. Beautiful. SE214 XT in black. Nice. $396 for a custom built PC. Again, the CPU is older, but it will be a good test of minimum specs. Let's go ahead and order everything. Hopefully everything shows up in one piece, and then from there, we'll be able to test if this actually shows good minimum specs and if it's a good price performance PC.
I'm finally ready to pick out my parts for the minimum spec build. I want to play Fortnite and Warzone. I'm like, okay, I don't care about Fortnite at that point. I need to get the specs for whatever the highest in-game you're going to run is, which technically in this case is Apex Legends, at least a 6993 or a 4350 GTX 950. I don't really think I need to look a lot further. I think this is probably going to be an all right little combo. Not bad for the price. Hopefully it shows up working, but 111 bucks, not too shabby. I kind of want to get a 4 gig model if I can. I know because that's their minimum spec for Apex is 2 gigs of VRAM, so I wouldn't mind having a 4 gig card. Anything weird? It's an MSI Armor card. They're pretty dang ugly. That's one thing I'll definitely say. Seller has good feedback. They even put a timestamp. 50 bucks. I mean, you know, I'll take it. I'll take it. We need an SSD. It appears we do. Yeah, we got an Ultra M.2 slot, Gen 3x4. We are good to go on that. We got our cooler. We need a power supply. It's a micro ATX case, so it's the size we need. It comes with the power supply. Like I said, I'm not recommending this power supply once, so don't at me. So I'm gonna go ahead and just add this to the cart. 241 bucks for a minimum spec PC that we get to build from scratch. So it's a little bit of fun too. I'm feeling pretty good about this build. Like I said, we're going above the minimum specs, not by a ton, but we're definitely going above on both games. And I'm feeling pretty good. I'm excited to build this. Let's go ahead and order everything. All right, guys, all of my parts are here. So I know my build's gonna be a little bit cheaper than Matt's. I ended up spending a total of $243.99 before tax. Let's go ahead and see what all we got here because I did order a combo. That's really how I think I'm able to kind of pull this off for so cheap. So on eBay, it's probably the graphics card. I'm gonna put that off to the side. So we got a Honeywell fan box, right? The packing material is pretty typical. You're like, okay. Unopened Lego set. It's the creator, one of the creator sets. This is probably a $10 Lego set. So I'm kind of winning already. I'm just saying, I've never seen that. I don't know if that's just like a fun thing that this eBay seller does or if they just ran a packing material. Look, they even wrote on it, Ryzen 3 1300X. So that right there is a 4-core 4-thread. This thing is old. This thing's like before Jonah building PCs old, you know? This stuff is kind of gaudy looking. XPG ADATA, this came with the combo, but it's not too bad. I mean, it's 3000 megahertz, and it's a 8 gig kit, so 2x4. You can tell originally it was a 16 gig kit, but they kind of broke it apart. Let's see what we got here. It's an ASRock board. We got a little bit of VRM coverage, so it's an ASRock AB350M. I don't remember why they did the AB. It's almost like a hybrid. It's an A board, but also a B board, I guess. So yeah, 111 bucks for all of this stuff here is a pretty good deal. We're gonna be putting in this KingSpec NVMe SSD. I ended up paying, looks like 30 bucks for this on Amazon, so not too bad, brand new. I think for the graphics card for Apex, it called for like a 950, I ended up going one step above and I get a GTX 960. So this is the 3 gig version, actually 4 gig, but it only actually has 3.5 gigs. It's like a weird quirk that these cards had. So GTX 964 gig, it's kind of like the MSI Armor cards. So they're not the prettiest, but honestly, it doesn't look terrible. So, but it doesn't smell like smoke. I'll definitely take it. It looks like I ended up paying $52.99 on eBay. This is funny because this is something that when I first started building PCs like 11 years ago, you could buy these on Newegg. Because they're kind of like an exclusive seller, I think, of Rosewill. What this is this is the FBM-X2-400. It's $50 and it comes with a power supply. So $50 for a power supply and case, it's cheap, it's not gonna be pretty, but this whole build coming in at like under $250 should be pretty insane. So let's go ahead and start putting it together. All right, time to show Matt my build. I'm gonna go grab him real quick. Hey Matt, you ready to see my build?
Oh, yeah. Sorry about that. Don't worry about that.
I've seen someone use the toilet that way. It's kind of weird.
Well, let's just not talk about that. Where'd all this dust come from?
Oh, were you grabbing the back of the toilet?
I grabbed the handle next to the toilet.
Oh God.
Helix, is this, what year is this, 2018?
Well, you know, it's funny, Jonah and I was talking and I was like, I feel like this case looks nicer than it used to. It's kind of a cool design.
It's not bad. I remember Helix, I guess you told him the backstory, how Helix was like the Newegg office PC line for a while there.
No, I didn't. Actually, I forgot about that. Yeah, did you know that, Jonah?
No, Newegg had an office PC line, and these Helix cases were like their office computers without graphics cards. I think it was almost before COVID they started selling them, and we did videos where we bought them and added graphics cards in.
We got a GTX 963 gig, or 3.5 gig, you know, technically 4 gig, whatever you want to call it. We got a 3200G. I think did I only have 8 gigs? I think I only have 8 gigs of RAM.
Nice.
But it is dual channel. 512 gig NVMe. We got an AB350, which I'm like, I don't, you know, like why did they, I guess it didn't know if it wanted to be an A board or a B board.
I don't know why they call them the AB350. I remember those though.
Maybe
I like
budget.
the gold RAM.
Yeah, dude, so that was a combo.
Baller.
But what's crazy is all together, this was $247.
Pretty dang good for an all-used parts PC. Well, just getting all these off-the-shelf components, I mean, you know, that price is pretty solid.
Yeah.
It doesn't look terrible either.
No, it's not too bad. So I think I have a little bit more than I need to play like Apex and Fortnite. I know that you said you may have done a little bit of padding too, because like the bare minimum is usually not the best price, so.
Yeah, we could have gone really, really cheap just to hit those minimum specs, but with the whole challenge of it being price performance also, we kind of need to go a little above that, so.
Dude, I think mine came from like the deep sea, because like look at the USB ports, they're like actually rusty.
Oh my God, where was this used?
I don't know, because well, we swapped out the cooler too, because I had a stock cooler, it worked fine, but Jonah was like, dude, those screws are like rusty.
Oh my God.
Want to make it look a little better, but anyways, yeah, you go ahead and start building your PC and get the reveal of that.
I'm ready. All right, gamers, it's time to build my PC, which is, I will say, only 2 used parts in this build. We got the GPU and the CPU. Everything else is new, so that should mean good things, right? We'll find out. First up, we have the Ryzen 5 1600, which is the minimum spec CPU for the games that I have. We have Ghost of Tsushima and Black Myth Wukong. We get the higher end AAA titles, so obviously I'm gonna be spending more money on my minimum spec PC, but we'll see what the price performance is like. First gen Ryzen, I'll be curious to see what this performs like in these new games. So for the motherboard, I did want to mess around and buy used because, well, I had a little bit of budget to spend because I can make a slightly higher end build. So I got this Soyo B450 motherboard, which is actually new on Newegg for $60.
I love the box.
Not a ton of room for upgrades, but it has everything we need, like an NVMe slot for the NVMe we're gonna put in there. And I mean, new for like $60 is not horrible for a B450. For the RAM, the minimum spec across all the games is at least 8 gigs, but we decided to go 16 for price performance here because just buying 8 nowadays, I mean, who really does that? 16 gigs is a really good option. Teamgroup Vulkan Z memory, we paid $28.99 for. I mean, DDR4 is just so cheap. It's so much sense to go with 16 gigs of RAM and not 8. I got this KingSpec 512GB NVMe Gen 3 SSD. Obviously, with first gen Ryzen, we're running Gen 3. This SSD will be perfect because it has 512 gigs of storage, which is enough for Windows and the 2 games I want to install, which are kind of bigger games. This will work out pretty fine. And yeah, it's from KingSpec. We've used these drives a couple of times and they're pretty solid. Now for my graphics card, I didn't get the exact model for either of my games. I got a 1660 Super for about $108, which I will say is a little pricey. I think they've actually dropped since I recorded this video, and Jonah's gonna love this.
Oh,
It's a baby single fan card. This is just a basic OEM model. I think it's an HP OEM model. The reason I went with this card is because the recommended GPU for both of the games was a 5500 XT, which if you look up 5500 XTs on eBay, they're like $150 to $160. This card performs very similar to that, if not better. Actually, it does perform better than that card, and you can get it for $100 to like $90. I wasn't just gonna just force a GPU for the minimum specs when there's a better option that's cheaper, so we went with this card to try to improve that price to performance score, and I think it will be good for the minimum spec requirements for both of those games. Now, I do have to punish myself a little bit here because this Segotep GN 650W 80 plus gold was not the original power supply I bought. I ended up buying an MSI 550BN, one of the mag power supplies, but a few days ago I was in the back of PC Bros and we're all like, what's this 550BN for? Nobody knew. I didn't even know. And then I realized after we put it in a build to sell at PC Bros, I was like, oh, that's what that's for. So that power supply is actually more expensive, $59.99. You can get these for around $50 occasionally. So I'm just gonna stick with the $59.99 pricing for my price performance because I made an oopsie and that's what I would use anyways. So it actually hurts me more. But hey, 650W 80 plus gold power supply, plenty for this PC build. All right, so for the case, we have the Mirage 2, which I bought this PC, like, or planned this whole PC. It's been a couple weeks at this point, and I still don't think we've used this case. You know, we've been sponsored by Okinos, we've used their stuff before, but I'll be honest, we haven't done a sponsored project with them in a little bit, but we just keep buying their cases. This kind of looks like almost like DIY PC Q3, but their version. Not bad for 58 bucks. So this build might look okay. I mean, this GPU is gonna look goofy regardless, it doesn't really matter. But for a little under $400, how good is the minimum specs gaming experience in Black Myth Wukong and Ghost of Tsushima? We're gonna find out, but we gotta build this PC first and then dive into it. Wow, guys, a working gaming PC. There's a couple issues there to get that up and running, but it is good now, and it's time to show Jackson what I got. I know he's been busy troubleshooting, so hopefully that is going well. Let's go check in on him. Oh, Jackson. Oh, Jackson. Oh. What's going on with that motherboard?
Doesn't work.
Doesn't work?
Doesn't work.
What do you mean doesn't work?
Doesn't work. It broke. So I had to put a different motherboard in my PC.
Okay, let's take a look at this first, and then we'll go look at my build, which it works. Okay, so you had to change the motherboard. What is this motherboard?
It's a B450M, so it's basically just one generation newer. We happen to have it in the back of PC Bros. I will be emailing this seller, well, messaging them on Facebook. I can kind of see why it doesn't work, and it's like on the board, there's even like, look at how corroded. You see that they're green. They're really green. The M.2 is corroded. So I'm gonna try to see if I can get a partial refund of like, I only spent like 110 bucks in that combo, so maybe 30 bucks. And that board was basically free for us anyways. It won't change my performance, so I'm still good.
The video still goes on, and it looks like we're installing Windows here, but let me show you my build real quick. Let's show you what I got. This is it. So we got Ryzen 5 1600, which met the minimum spec requirement for most of the games.
Like this?
Yeah, I don't know. So this is like, we were talking about, it's like the Q1 DIY PC case, but then it's like shrunk even more. And also they have that like extra slot for like thicker motherboards that cover the fans. I don't know why they did it like that. You can actually take that bracket off and get those really thin boards.
I saw the Philips heads, like it looks like you could just take the whole thing off.
You could, but this board still hangs over, so it's kind of like, you know, might as well. But then we have 16 gigs of RAM, 512 SSD, a 1660 Super, which is a little bit above the other cards, and I was talking to Jonah and the viewers before we started this, but the 5500 XT was the card that we saw in most of the games, but that card is just so overpriced right now.
Right.
So 1660 Super is actually faster and it's cheaper, which is surprising for NVIDIA, but you know what, used market, and we got it all put together, and it's looking like it's pretty good. I spent $396 on this PC.
Okay. All right, well, we'll both get a Windows, unsupported Windows 11 installed in our PCs, and then I guess we'll game.
Let's game.
All right, guys, we are playing Apex Legends, and it's not looking too hot so far. So 1300X, we're basically running pretty much low settings. Like, we're not at the absolute lowest. We're also not in 720p. which I couldn't remember. Could you find, did it say 720p anywhere?
So minimum spec requirements I'm looking at for Apex, it doesn't say the resolution. It just says running the minimum system requirements, which would be, I would assume, low settings. All it gives are specs. So you get Windows 10, you get either the CPU, an i3 6300 or an FX 4350, 6 gigs of RAM, and the GPU be a GTX 950 or like a Radeon 7790. 2 gigs of RAM is all it says it needs for the GPU. GPU
Oh, VRAM. Okay, I was just like 2 gigs of RAM is
6
crazy.
gigs of RAM is what it asks for system-wise, and 75 gigs of free space. But I would just, it could be wrong. The general assumption is every time I see minimum, it's normally like 720p 30 is what people say is minimum, which I think is not very playable at all. But at least it's playable right now. It's 60 FPS with some dips.
Yeah, that's really the biggest thing is just the dips. The dips are a little bit jarring. Maybe they'll smooth out, but it really, I mean, honestly, I'm utilizing almost everything fully. Now, one thing that did happen is I did reach out to the seller. I did get a partial refund because not only did the motherboard not work, I also realized this only has 8 gigs of RAM and I paid for 16. So I ended up getting 35 bucks back, which made my total like 209 bucks, which, hey, that's really cheap for a whole build. All right, guys, this is 720p. I gotta say that it made the game look horrible, but I just want to run it for another minute just to see if it's like smoother at least. Yeah, I don't know. It really just might be the 1300X. It's funny. It's like worse than I remember.
Yep.
And it's not even the bottom. It's crazy to think that there was a CPU underneath this one as well.
The 1200. Yeah.
Yep. Sure, I remember getting that one back in the day, but I think it's just the true 4-core. It also has some older technologies, lower clock speed. I mean, overall, it's just a pretty old CPU, but honestly, the price was very much reflected on the eBay sale because I got it for so cheap. But I'm gonna give Apex, I'm gonna say definitely playable. If I'd gotten a 950 and like, what was the CPU again that it said?
So it would have been like an i3 6300, which is a 2-core 4th-thread. There's no way. There's
I
no
mean,
way.
That would have been like 720p, 30 FPS. At least with not going the bare minimum, I would say this right here is about minimum that I would do.
And I would assume these requirements were on launch with Apex. So some things have changed a bit. Not dramatically, but they've changed a bit. And even that, that FX 4350 would be the other option, which would not.
Oh, that'd be so, I mean, that's a...
Those represents is 4-core.
Oh, they're probably a 2.4.
Yeah, it'd be a 2.4, so just like the i3. So.
Yeah. Yeah, but worse than the i3, I would say. So, yeah, I definitely wouldn't go with either of those. But anyways, we're gonna go ahead and go on to Fortnite. Hopefully that's a little bit more playable. We'll see because that game is pretty CPU dependent.
Do it.
All right, guys, we're playing everyone's favorite battle royale now, Fortnite. So we're currently running 1080p. We're doing performance mode, unlimited frame rate, and we got everything on low except for view distance on far, which I guess technically you could run close on that.
Whoa.
Oh. Let's see if this stabilizes out, because we know Fortnite loves CPUs, but a lot of times it takes a couple minutes. You know, like first drop's always the laggiest, so.
Yeah, and I will say the quad core should do better in performance mode, which I'm assuming, well, actually, no, I'm not assuming, I know those minimum specs did not come out when performance mode was a thing. It was definitely like DX11 early Fortnite days. So performance mode has helped a lot to where you can run on pretty much anything, but we'll see.
Yeah, I still don't believe the minimum performance, or the minimum specs that Fortnite has, because literally say you can run a 3rd gen i3 with integrated graphics. I'm just like, there's absolutely like no way. Maybe at 25% render scale, like the worst quality like ever. Oh my God.
That bot was running that. This is running like
play by play.
Is that a real gamer?
Oh. What am I doing? Oh my God.
He's drilling.
The lag is on my side.
Retreat. Oh, that's a hard lockup. Holy, yeah. Oh, yo. Okay, Fortnite. Because I know we're gonna get comments, people being like, "Guys, you didn't really run the minimum spec." Tell me how this is gonna run like this, and you expect UHD graphics with a 3rd gen i3 to do this? Oh my God.
Yeah, I mean, I think. You know, I don't think it's worth. Here's the way I'd put it. I think if we lower the render scale, because right now we are at 100%. If we lower the render scale, or even you know, use some upscaling, I do think we can make this game playable more than it was. But I think the moral of the story is, you know, the actual minimum specs definitely not worth even trying in Fortnite.
No. All right, let's switch to the higher end AAA titles on my PC and see how it fares. All right, guys, we're at Black Myth Wukong. We are currently running the following settings. I gotta show Jackson this, by the way. I don't know if you noticed this. Does this happen to you for FrameGen? Why is FrameGen in a different language now for me? I don't know why it's doing that. And also, they have their own upscaler now. I looked it up. NXSR is like their own made upscaler. Anyways, kind of cool. I haven't played this on a little bit since I've beaten it, but we're on low settings, currently running 1080p, 50% render scale, so like practically 720p. And the minimum specs, I will read off. This is according to Steam, by the way, because there's no like official specs from the developers of Black Myth Wukong. It's whatever's on Steam, which is pretty much the same thing. A Ryzen 5 1600 or an 8400, and the GPU is a 1060, 6 gig, or 580. So we do have definitely have a better GPU, but the CPU is right at the quote-unquote minimum. So I don't really know what that necessarily will mean here. Let's discard changes because I don't even know if I don't have enough upscaling on. But I will say this does not look great. Like this, oh God, what is happening? There's some flashing happening in the distance.
Weird volumetric lighting.
Weird volumetric lighting. We are using TSR, so we're using a little bit of an upscaling tech to make this somewhat work, but I mean, getting 60, it's playing, but is it actually good? No, not within the slightest. So I would say, I don't know, man. It's okay, but I would definitely not choose this for an ideal experience playing this game. I would have thought the minimum would have been 30. Obviously, our GPU is a bit better, but our GPU even then is only being used like 50% of the time right now. So maybe 1080p all low with like upscaling, you could technically get a playable experience. But I'd argue I could probably get similar performance on a handheld running 720p. So I definitely want to play the game rather than run the benchmark tool, because the benchmark tool does give you a little more performance than you would actually get in game from what I've noticed. So it's not like the perfect test, but it's just convenient because it's a much smaller file size than the 120 plus gigs that this game is. The fire looks so goofy.
It just looks fake.
It looks so fake and goofy. And yeah, now we're getting dips below 6. You're in the 40s now. I would say if you were desperate to play this game, is this playable? Jesus, 100%. But is this one of those situations where I think it's ideal? No, you're better off, especially if you have access to like a console, playing this game on a console. Wow.
Wow.
Way to defeat that boss. I think it's somewhat playable. Wasn't horrible. Let's see what Ghost of Tsushima is like, which is arguably a less demanding game, but has some crazy visuals going on. So I'd be curious to see what that looks like with my PC. Okay guys, we are playing Ghost of Tsushima. We're currently running, let's go to the display settings, 1080p, which I will say, the recommended specs for this game are kind of interesting because the GPU is somewhat close to the 1660 Ti. It's a 5500 XT, which it is the 4 gig model, so maybe it's a VRAM limitation thing, but the Ti is a bit faster, so we should get more performance there. And it's targeting 720p low with like a Ryzen 3 1200. So we're definitely on the upper side of things when it comes to CPU and GPU for this game. But I would think 720p low is kind of a over-exaggeration, because if we're on low settings right now and we're getting almost 60 FPS in this game without any upscaling, I wouldn't think those specs would do the same thing. Like, I wouldn't think 720p 30 FPS is the best you can do.
The wind cracks me up. It's like, on these low settings, it just looks
it does.
Drawn.
It does look very drawn. And I mean, this is 60 FPS. I mean, this is a game that, I mean, there are gonna be some more demanding scenes in this that would probably dip it below, and we're not even using any upscaling, so it could be much more playable. But this is a game, again, that's much easier to run than Wukong, and in terms of the minimum spec, I think you would get more than 720p 30 FPS, for sure. I think they're just erring on the side of caution, which I mean, totally understand. Send your best warrior to fight. Oh! Digital stand. Oh, wait, hold up. Do I got another one? Oh! Double whammy.
just to scare him.
I'll make you all fight me. Oh, that wouldn't work. The peasants.
Now rob him.
Now give me your money. I don't want to hear your life story.
Crawling in the background.
All right, don't you get away. I think the minimum specs for the games that I had were definitely a little over-exaggerated. I feel like you would get more performance than they actually advertised, but that's with upscaling in mind as well. I mean, this game, we're not running any upscaling. We're getting a very playable experience. Like, I would play this game on these settings. Obviously, this game is very visually appealing, so having higher end hardware would be better, but this is still really, really playable. But this is a budget build challenge after all. We got to get our cent per point using 3D Mark, and we'll talk about that during the outro. But in terms of our minimum spec PCs using mixture of using new parts and only custom builds, this is looking pretty good. Let's go and wrap this video up real quick and talk about those 3D Mark scores.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we just got done benchmarking 2 gaming PCs, one which was Matt's going with those AAA titles, and then mine going with those esports titles, and I would say we both did a good job with the budget at hand, but we got to talk about what type of performance we actually got.
So our 3D Mark score will be a way for us to compare the price performance of these PCs. Now do keep in mind, price performance isn't everything when it comes to our cent per point score. Obviously upgradability and long-term viability of each system isn't factored into the score we get. So we'll talk a little about that later, but let's go ahead and go over those 3D Mark scores. With my PC, we ended up with a score of 5,839, which is a 7 cent per point score based on my price point of $396. And Jackson's was 2,081, which is a 9 cent per point score after factoring in the refunds and stuff we got from eBay. And honestly, both of these systems are decently upgradable. I know the motherboard you had before was a little bit more limited, but you can go like a 3000 series Ryzen if you actually got a working motherboard like we did. And the one in here especially can go up to a 5000 series with a BIOS update. So both of these are upgradable. And if you are focused on esports PCs, maybe something in between would be an ideal balance for both of these builds.
But yeah, guys, if you end up liking this challenge, maybe let us know down below what else you would like to see. Maybe recommended specs next time or something like that. But we hope you guys enjoyed today's video. If you did, make sure you check out our other 2 YouTube channels and also our twitch.tv/ToastyBros. And do not forget to like, comment, and subscribe.
Hey, we'll see you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.
So both of these PCs will be for sale at PCBros.tech, and for the whole month of April, we've been doing a Spring 6 discount, which gives you 6% off, so make sure you guys take advantage of that.
You can buy these PCs or any other PC at PCBros.tech and save some money. You can even buy this new merch, guys. Look at the merch. It's looking fresh, designed by Zach from the Toasty Bros. So you're gonna buy this merch ready to go or any PC, link down below, PCBros.tech. See you guys later. Goodbye.